friends. I'm your host, Dr. Dave Layton, and thank you for joining me in our journey to hope. It is my desire through this podcast to bring you information about how to discover, sustain, or perhaps regain hope. Well, in this episode, we'll be speaking with Craig Dehut. Craig is one of the co-founders, and he's the COO of Appian Media. This is actually the second time that I've been honored to have Craig as a guest. The first episode, by the way, is episode 19, and I invite you to go back and listen to that. Well, hello, Craig.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
Seriously, the honor is mine. Anyway, I'm thrilled to have you as a guest, and thank you for your time. So let's kind of get started. Okay, tell us about the big announcement that you guys just went through.
Yeah, so just a few days ago, our team was down, or members of our team were down in Albany, Georgia for this year's Christian Worldview Film Festival. And this was the 12th year. I believe this was the 12th year that they've been doing that in a variety of locations over the years, but recently have been doing their in Albany at it's the Sherwood Baptist Church. For those that are familiar with films like Fireproof or Courageous, Facing the Giants from the Kendrick brothers, it's actually out of that town and that church that came from. And so just to be there with other creatives, other filmmakers who are trying to communicate Christian worldview in the films that they're making. Out of Egypt had been nominated for Best Feature-Length Documentary, along with several other really good films. And we were thankful to bring home the runner-up. So that was exciting. It's not why we do what we do, to get awards, and that's not really it. But it's helpful and it's encouraging. I think it's encouraging for our donors as well to hear from other industry professionals who recognize, that we're putting out quality content, that the production value is high, and they emphasize quite heavily and quite rightly, the messaging that we're communicating.
Yeah.
It needs to more than just look and sound well done. It actually needs to communicate something meaningful. And so it was encouraging to be recognized by our peers in that way.
Well, I want to talk a little bit more about Out of Egypt later, but what I love about Appian Media is the quality. It's not like you guys went out in your backyard and made some home movies. You have traveled worldwide,
Sure.
done some great work, and I do want to come back to that later. But okay, so folks say Appian Media, what is that? So just share a little bit about what it is.
Sure. So Appian Media, we started back in 2015. Became a non-for-profit in 2016, and we travel over to the lands of the Bible, and we produce biblical documentaries from the places that those events took place. And so since 2016 and our very first trip to Israel, we've produced documentaries and documentary series about the life of Jesus, about the United Kingdom, the first kings of Israel, the 7 churches of Revelation, and then this one that recently came out was the story of the Exodus, where we visited Egypt and Jordan and tried to trace one of the paths that the Israelites came out of slavery. And we produce podcasts, and especially we produce printed workbooks that help people connect the visuals to the biblical text. One of the things that does set us apart with Appian Media, and it produces some interesting conversations even at film festivals like we were just at, is we give the content away for free. So the videos are all completely free to watch online, and no strings attached. It's our desire that Bible class teachers and students of the Bible, homeschool families, and anyone interested in that can consume the content and benefit from it.
Yeah. And of course, I'll put links to all that in the show notes when I post this, but I had the chance to travel while I was in the military. I say travel. It was like, you're going to go there. So, okay. Right. But I was stationed for a year in Turkey, and part of that year, I was over in Balıkesir, which is on the, I guess it'd be the western part of Turkey, and saw a lot of ruins. And one time I took a trip down toward the coast below what is now Incirlik and Adana, Turkey, Incirlik Air Base, but Adana, Turkey. And I spent part of that afternoon in Tarsus. And it was, I'm standing in a ruin, and I don't know, there was a plaque on it that said, something about Paul, but it still was remarkable to stand there and to think, the Apostle Paul and the first century Christians, that they walked here, and there's a lot of the Roman ruins and things of that nature. And so that's what you guys do. One of the things I enjoy. I may never get to travel to the places that you went to, but you present it in such a real way, you can kind of begin to gather the essence of it. And so that's what I like about that. No wonder. Oh, by the way, runner-up is not a small thing. That is an awesome award.
Yeah, we're thankful for it. I mean, I'm not sure how many people submitted to it, but we were able to, part of these film festivals that I enjoy is we get to sit and watch. Yeah. They play each of the films that have been nominated, and we were able to sit and watch most of the others that had been nominated. Okay. Variety of topics. They're not obviously all producing the same type of things that we are. I did notice a central theme that all of the nominees involved other countries. So they were documentaries that had been filmed in other places, which I found quite fascinating. It's an honor and it's a joy to be recognized in that way. And I think it helps to it helps in our donors' minds to know that what they're contributing to is producing quality results. And that's been a key to our mission from the very beginning, is we could have the best message, but if we can't figure out how to professionally wrap that up, if people can't get beyond the poorly produced packaging, we know that the audience isn't going to listen. And so it's always our desire to do the best that we can with what we have to make sure that packaging is easy to consume and fun to consume.
Well, if the videos I've watched, and I binged watched Out of Egypt, I enjoyed that a lot. We'll talk again. But anyway, it flowed well. Sometimes in some of the newer movies or whatever that you watch on television shows, it's moving so quickly and bouncing from one thing to another. It's hard for us old guys to stay focused on it, but I like the way you completed a thought as you moved through it, and then it flowed well. Good transitions. Okay, enough about that, but I did enjoy that. All right, so I did watch the series Out of Egypt, the one that you guys won the award for, and I enjoyed it very much. Two favorite scenes in all of it, and one of them, I laughed, was Jeremy making those bricks. Rolling up his britches and
jumping right in.
I couldn't help. Years ago, some friends of ours, we got together and we started a education and training consulting company, and one of our clients manufactured paper bags, plastic bags, like trash bags and food storage bags, things like that. And they had a high turnover rate in the area of where they packaged them. And they asked us to come in and do a time motion study and kind of look and see what was going on. Anyway, I wanted to experience what it was like. So they sat me down in a chair, and the bags, trash bags, were coming down the conveyor belt, and then they would they were coming down in layered sections, like 10 or 12 layered, and my task was to roll them up by hand and put them in a box. I lasted 15 minutes. I thought, oh man, and it was amazing. Now there was a lady sitting next to me, and she was doing 2 rolls at a time. This lady had it down, but I thought about that when I saw Jeremy making those bricks. I thought,
that's right.
He lasted longer than I would have. But that was fascinating.
It was one of the pieces of the story that we actually identified early on in pre-production. Is we understood that there were still people over there that produce mud bricks in a very similar fashion to how they were produced back when the Israelites were there. And the scriptures talk about the mud bricks that they were required by Pharaoh to produce, that it involved straw. because eventually the straw was taken away and they had to find their own straw. And it was one of these tasks where obviously we weren't there filming slaves. These were employees. This is a job. This is a brickyard. We did want to clarify that because someone did ask, how did those slaves feel? No. They were not slaves. They were employees. They're getting paid. But it's hard work. It's really hard work. And you can see in the video, even when Jeremy suggests to our guide over there, the fixer, can I do their job? He kind of goes,
we may let you, but you may not. But
it'd be hard for you. And Jeremy's like, I know, I'll do it. And so, he rolled up his pants and got down in the mud, and they're mixing that water and clay and manure and straw. We did not shoot that in smell-o-vision. I'm thankful for that. Our audience would not appreciate that, but it was messy, dirty, extremely exhausting work.
Yeah. And the guy that was doing it as his job, he had a great sense of humor about it.
Oh yeah, they were such a joy to be around, and they were so good humored about it. And then they showed Jeremy, they've got a little wood
the mold
template, right? A mold, that they put the mud in, and they explained that 5 employees can produce 2,500 bricks a day.
Wow.
And, so those are the people helping to mix it. Those are the people who are putting it in the molds. But then it does take 2 or 3 days for them to just sit out in the sun and bake. These are not oven-baked bricks. They're just sun-baked. And then transferring those. So you could actually look and see, even in the footage, some of the bricks were of lighter color.
Okay.
Because they had been sitting out for an extra day. They would then bake. And then you've got bricks that they're then hauling and moving around and putting on trucks. And these are strong people. And to think about that was a joy.
Yeah. And to think about how many bricks it would take to build some of the massive structures.
Right.
Just amazing. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that because, again, it added a sense of realism that we can connect back through the centuries. Right. What amazing that was.
They even allowed Jeremy and another member of our team to take home a finished brick.
Okay.
And so you can imagine getting through airport security. They're like, what is this? Some of them tried to get it and couldn't get it through security, but Jeremy managed, and Dan Kingsley, our executive producer, managed. And so now Jeremy, when he's able to teach the Exodus, and show them that video clip and the photos, but also say, like, here's a brick. You can handle it. And you can see the straw. And we find that incredibly helpful.
Before I watched that video, the only image I had in my mind was from the 10 Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille, making bricks, and Charlton Heston down in that mud pit. But y'all were, that was good. I liked that. Okay. The other scene I really liked, and this one, of course, was more serious, and it was amazing, was on the mountain. Oh, man, what an incredible experience that had to have been. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So central to the story of the Exodus is not simply that they come out of Egypt, but that God takes them to Mount Sinai, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes maybe in our teaching we spend too much time talking about Exodus and what happened, or Egypt and what happened there, but it really culminated at the mountain, what God did for his people at the mountain. Yeah. Now, for anyone who's done even just a small amount of research on Mount Sinai, they can understand that there is a healthy debate, let's put it that way, as far as which mountain we're talking about.
And by the way, that's interesting. God did not want to make that a place where people would pilgrimage to worship and, create a temple. I see his wisdom in it not being this latitude and longitude, So
yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
There are events in the Bible where God is actually very specific about the place. He gives indications. You think about, go back and read the story of David and Goliath and the Valley of Elah. There are numerous locations and descriptions. You can identify that place very specifically. Mount Sinai, God lists several stops that they made on the way, but those are not established cities that we can find ruins of. So there's most maps have a lot of question marks.
Okay.
So there is a location that has been proposed for hundreds of years there in the Sinai Peninsula. They refer to it as Jabal Musa. And that is what's known when you look on most of your maps in the back of your Bible, perhaps you'll see this mountain there in the Sinai Peninsula. There are several other locations. Some people would even suggest 10 or 12 other potential locations for Mount Sinai. Probably the one that's the most popular alternative, but only within the last 80 or 100 years, is a location in Saudi Arabia. And they call that Jabal al-Laz. You'll find some fairly sensationalized videos online about people saying with I think unfair absolute confidence that is in fact the location. If you watch our documentary, you'll discover that we don't spend a lot of time talking about the debate because contrary to what people will say on the internet, the debate is not finished. It has been ongoing for millennia, and I think probably will continue. But what we chose to do was to go to one of the sites, frankly, that it was available for us to shoot at legally and safely, and take time to consider what happened on Sinai and what God did with Moses and God was doing with his people. And we hiked up that mountain. You can see in the video there was a delay. There was some trouble getting our permits to go through, and the funding needed to
a little extra
to say
funding.
that politely. And we were delayed so much so that what was supposed to be a 3 or 4 hour hike, giving us plenty of time before the sunset when we got up there, turned into a 2 or 3 hour hike chasing the sunset because we didn't want to get there in the dark. And so we were moving at quite a pace. And thankfully, we're able to get up there and see the sunset up there, and then spend the night on top of the mountain. In the open air. There were a couple of structures up there. There are actually Bedouins who live up there for a few months at a time. You can see them in the video. They were very gracious and generous to us to prepare a meal. But we just slept out in the open air, in the freezing open air.
Yeah, we don't think about it being cold, but you're elevated, and it gets cold. Desert doesn't necessarily mean burning sun all the time.
Oh, that's right. We were hot at the base of it in T-shirts, and they said, bring jackets. You won't need it now, but you will need it. And we did. And then to wake up in the morning and catch the sunrise and think about Moses was up there for 40 days. God was speaking to him. It was on Mount Sinai where God allowed his presence to pass by Moses, and he put him in the cleft of the rock, and all of these impactful, powerful moments of the Exodus story. The law was given, and the 10 Commandments, and just to be up there as a team, having trekked up there pretty strenuously, and then take time to think about when you read the text. I didn't catch it at first, but Moses made that hike up and down several times.
That's right, yep.
And we were kind of complaining about just the one. And we're like, look, Moses was 80 years old when he did this, so surely we can get up and down without serious injury. It was a blessing. It was an incredible experience.
Well, and thanks for sharing that with us through the videos. But I loved it that y'all sat there around the fire. History changed on that mountain. History began on that mountain. And that sunrise and the thoughts that you guys shared, I just want people, that was a peak moment in the whole video series. And then there were other things as you explored different locations and different events and talked with some of the people from that area that could explain better. There was a scene where a man was talking about some of the hieroglyphics and some of the other things that were there that, again, I enjoyed that as well. Yeah. Well, it was a greatly done video, and I think, again, it's bringing the Bible alive, to life. It helps us. It helps us internalize it, and I know you guys, your life was changed through all of that. So, all right. And again, that kind of gets to the point you mentioned it about homeschoolers and small congregations and even individual study. It's just good supportive material, and so I like that. Okay.
Yeah, that was our goal from the beginning, is we were recognizing in our own teaching of classes, especially in younger kids or high school kids, the power is in the Word. God has preserved that over time. It's inspired and complete and authoritative. And yet we were finding people getting disengaged with it when the power is in it. And so our thought was, we're not trying to supplant the Word or replace the Word, but what can we do to offer to get people excited about the Word again? And we're visual learners. Everyone is to some degree.
Yeah.
When we read text, our imagination turns on. And so what could we do to give people the right visuals to feed their imaginations? Well, let's show them the places. What does Egypt look like? Well, it's probably not what you've pictured in your minds. I know Israel was certainly not what I pictured. I pictured Israel, because it's how it was drawn in illustrations, and unfortunately still is, as desert sand dunes. That's the country of Israel. That's not, it's just not. There are places in Israel, especially in the northern portion, that are just luscious and green and lush, I think is actually the word. Okay. And just so giving people the right imagery, giving people the right visuals, so that when they read the text again, it's exciting and engaging and moving to them again. Re-engagement is a word we use a lot with Appian Media.
Well, that's really good that you're describing it as lush, because we think about, God's described it as a land of milk and honey, and then we see these pictures of desert, and it's like, well, I don't know where that came from.
Right.
So, yeah.
There certainly are places, especially in southern, you get near the Dead Sea, and obviously, yes, it's very barren. There are areas where it is the wilderness. It does talk about Jesus going out and being tempted in the wilderness. But in the same way that we would think it'd be unfair if somebody looked at a couple of pictures from the United States of, say, Nevada, and thought the whole country looked like that. And we'd go, well, that's not fair. There are mountains, there are rivers, there are these. And Nevada's beautiful, but there's a variety. And there is so much variety, even just within the country of Israel. But we've been able to travel to Turkey and to Egypt and Jordan, and there's unique and beautiful elements in each of those places. And we have plans, Lord willing, to visit many more.
Well, let me ask a couple of questions about hope, because the show is about helping folks discover, sustain, and regain hope. And I want to chat just a few minutes about how Appian Media helps with that. And then I want to talk about what is on the horizon, because you've got a couple of very exciting things, I think, that are going to be coming out. And so, but yeah, as I said in my introduction, it is about helping folks discover, regain, or sustain hope. And hope is challenged in so many ways. And we tell about, hope is found in our Lord Jesus Christ. That's eternal hope. That's true and lasting hope. And somebody says, well, I can intellectually understand that. So how does Appian Media help in sustaining and developing hope?
Yeah. We have a God that has promised us some pretty incredible things. Hard to believe things sometimes when you think about what he's offered to us: eternal life, a place without pain and sin and hardship, and what do we have to have trust in a promise that big, that incredible? Well, when God has made other promises throughout history, and God has made other statements, he's proven himself to be trustworthy. And one of the things that we hope that Appian Media does is we work to show you the validity of these events. They really happened. They're real places. They were real people. And so if we can trust the facts of the biblical account, there really was a man named Jesus. He really did perform these things and speak these things. He really did raise from the dead. Well, that should then strengthen our hope in the promises that God has made. That God did not promise us an easy life. God did not promise to remove all hardship in this life, but he promised a greater life later. And when he recounted, the majority of the biblical text is narrative. It's recounting events of things that have happened. We can have great confidence that those were real events from real places and real people, and they really happened, and God really had a hand in those things, leading and guiding those things.
And those narratives show his faithfulness to that promise he made to Abram.
That's right.
Back in Genesis 12. And
That's
how, right. I mean, is the difficulty that the Israel people, but on this side of history, you guys are doing a great job of showing how God's hand guided that. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
He has never failed us. He has not made a statement where he's had to break a promise or was mistaken about things to come. And so I put my hope in that because, frankly, there's nothing else in this life that is that sure.
Right.
And I can take great faith and hope in that.
And so God makes the promise, and he uses that incredibly powerful word, if. And where God has had to punish or change or whatever, we violated what he asks of us. And back to out of Egypt, there they were traveling. Moses had them.
Yeah.
And they drifted away.
Yeah.
They forgot the if part. Yeah. And had to, I don't want to say start over again, but had to go through a whole lot more. The entire generation had to pass away except Joshua and Caleb. Right. So that what should have been a matter of months turned out to be decades.
Right. And you read about that. Like, they made good time, all things considered, and the amount of people coming out of it. They made pretty good time to the point where they send in those 12 spies.
Yeah.
And that should have been it. That should have been all it took. And yet 10 of those spies said, yeah, God, we don't believe you.
Yeah.
And
led
say we
so
can take
many
this land.
away.
Come on. They're too big for us. The cities are too strong. And so God's promises were still sure. He was still faithful. But they turned to God and said, we don't believe you.
Yeah.
And so God brought up another generation that did.
Yeah. Those people over there are bigger than God.
Oh, come on. Don't they remember? I mean, we do the same thing. I do need to be patient with the people of Israel, but we read the text and we're like, did they forget the plagues? Like, they just came out of a nation that was far superior than theirs in every measurable way, and God said, I'm going to bring my people out, and I'm going to use brings them to Canaan.
Yeah, and he used those plagues to destroy the things that the people of Egypt had their faith in. So, wow.
But how quickly we forget. I do need to be patient with the people of Israel.
And that's a lesson.
And I'm stubborn, and
that's a lesson for us. Yeah, okay. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts on hope and the assurance, that confident expectation we can have. So let's talk about the future of Appian Media, because you have some interesting things. You mentioned about David and Goliath. So talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah. So we have produced a series called Searching for a King. That was actually within our first 2 or 3 years. And that covers the story of what they call the United Kingdom. So the first 3 kings before the nation of Israel split into Israel and Judah. But people can look back at the things that we've created already. We've done a series on the Gospels, and we've done, the United Kingdom, and we've done the 7 churches of Asia, and maybe they're thinking to themselves that these guys just have a dartboard. In the first few years, maybe it was kind of that way. But our long-term goal is to be able to create content so that people can study the Bible using this type of media from cover to cover, from Genesis to Revelation. And as we're now in our 9th year of doing this, our hope is that people can start to see these guys are filling things in. Yeah. We have a plan to create a multi-year curriculum, both for junior high and up, and then for that age group and down. So basically 2 sets of curriculum to take people through the Bible in a 3-year span. And that's what we've got our eyes set on. So the next set of videos, this is going to be a 2 or 3 year plan, is to do the book of Acts and the rest of the New Testament. So the epistles of the inspired writers there. And that's, if you've read the book of Acts, you understand that is multiple countries and many different locations. And it is our prayer and our goal to raise the funds here in the summer of 2025 in order to take a production trip, the longest production trip we've ever taken, in the fall of 2025, to begin what would be about the first half of Acts.
Okay.
And we're producing, again, with what we've done with our content, not just videos, but corresponding workbooks. There will be additional material, likely podcasts and other things to take you even deeper. And that would conclude the New Testament, because we've already done the Gospels and we've done a portion of Revelation, and to fill in the rest of that is our goal, and to communicate to people, can you see the vision now? Can you see what we're after? It is our goal that whatever someone is studying or wants to know more of, they would be able to visit our site and look at our content and say, oh, they've got a video about that, or they've got a workbook about that, and that can help in my study.
Yeah. Wow. You piqued my interest on Acts, because what a great book that is. I wrote a book, I had it published, it's called Actions and Reactions. And it looks at some of the major events in Acts and what it means to us in the 21st century Christians. So I'm very interested in that one. That'll be great. A while back, you guys had asked about where some of us would like to see some of your work go, and I'm interested in the next chapter following Exodus, when all that Israel went through as they took possession of the promised land under Joshua, and what that was like. So that would be an interesting study too. But I'm excited to hear about Acts. That'll be a great one.
And that's part of the roadmap. So we would say that's Joshua Judges, right? Or conquest of Canaan.
Right.
And those early years, because once we put that piece in, we already have the United Kingdom finished. And so people can start to see these things are connecting.
Yeah.
And so that's the goal. Yes, we have visited Jericho. We went there as we studied the Gospels. Obviously, Jesus visits Jericho, and saw some things that would relate to the conquest of Canaan. I'm anxious to go back. So that is on the horizon, Lord willing.
You alluded to it a couple of times of how that narrative is flowing together. Well, that's what the Bible is. It's a continuous story, and so sometimes we got locked into, well, this happened and that happened as silo kind of events, but no, story of our God's faithful promise. He started in Genesis chapter 3 and moved on.
Absolutely.
We're experiencing it now. Okay, great. Anything else you want to share, my friend?
Oh, I appreciate what you're doing to help us get the word out. I appreciate the emphasis of your podcasts, and I'm so thankful to hear 100 episodes of podcasts. That takes a lot of work and effort and passion. And
well, I have to share with you, last night at about 5 minutes after 12, I woke up and I turned on my iPad and saw, yay, the 100th has been published, and I listened to it.
Oh, good.
And Cheryl was a great guest, so anyway, well, thank you. I appreciate what you guys are doing. Your passion comes through, your faithfulness to the Lord and to our mission of getting the word out comes through, and that's just such a great thing. So thank you. Well, all right, my friend, I'll wrap up. I appreciate your time. It's such a valuable gift to give your time, so thank you for that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, friends, thank you for joining Craig and I as together we journey to hope. I invite you to follow this podcast so you can continue to gain insights into not only our journey to hope, but how we can help others in their journey. I invite you to contact me if you have any questions or comments, or if you wish to share with me something you've experienced in your journey to hope. My email is info@ourjourneytohope.com. That's info@ourjourneytohope.com. I promise not to share your email, but I'd love to have you communicate with me. I'm interested in helping all of us as together we journey to hope. I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Again, thank you for listening. And until our next episode, remember, we give all glory to God our Father.